yanjye banyita Viola. Bahaye ikaze hano muri Vibes with V. Muri kumwe nanjye umuhost wanyu Viola Ingabire. So today I'm going to be introducing my channel and what I'll be basically talking about here. We're going to be having a safe space to talk about issues that concern everyone here in Rwanda and beyond. You might be watching from a different country, and we all struggle with the same thing. We're going to talk about substance abuse, we're going to talk about addiction, we're going to talk about true crime, everything fueled up, to bring about fractured lives. So today we're going to start with substance abuse. I will give you a personal story and we'll probably go from there. So we'll start with a little experience, a little story about myself. We're going to start with the young Viola. I grew up in Rwanda. I was born and raised in Rwanda and shortly went to study abroad. High school, everything was cool. I grew up in a very conservative family, meaning ADPR. Niba warakuriye muri ADPR ndagusuhuje cyane. A very conservative family, very religious, so means there was no alcohol, no exposure to anything of the sort. This is why I always tell people your children do not go into alcohol or substance abuse because of what you've shown them or how they were raised. It's just simply something that is beyond your control. Because out there, when they live on themselves with themselves on their own in campuses, in university, it will reach a time they will meet friends. They will make friends. They will meet people from other backgrounds. They will definitely try things you didn't teach them. So that's basically what happened. I went to study. It was college. Everybody was trying new things. So I tried. I went to a few parties and I started experimenting with alcohol. And that's how I got into the addiction phase. It wasn't something that I was doing on a daily. It wasn't something that was very common. Nobody in my family drank, by the way. I never saw anybody, not my parents, not anybody around me. But then it was something new, something to try. So it was college. I kept telling myself, we're partying. Everybody's partying around you. You are barely 20. Everybody's partying. You're in a new country. I was in China. So I tried. If I said partied, I did. Girl, I was out every Friday, every Sunday, Monday, even days where I had school. I don't know how I managed to pass, but I did. I never failed a single class and I did well. So after university, you would think that, oh, the party days are over. Now it's time to focus on a career, right? Well, that is when I came to the realization that I had a problem. So up to now, everything I'm telling you is something each and everyone out there has experienced. It's okay to party in your early 20s. It's okay to be a party wild girl. It's fine because there was a time and it was around the age that I should be partying, right? But what happens when it doesn't stop when it should? What happens when you realize it's more than partying? What happens when you can't stop? That's what happened. Well, coming back, I needed to find a career, and I did. And this is something I always tell people. Just because you can keep a job, just because you're not getting drunk at work, doesn't mean that you're not an alcoholic. You are. If the first thing you think about after work is pouring yourself a glass of wine or a shot, or if your first stop is going to a bar after work, you do have a problem. You just haven't accepted it yet. So for the longest time, I didn't think I had a problem because I showed up to work. I was doing good for myself. I was making money, a very young girl making money for herself. So I didn't think I was failing in life because I had everything. I had a good job. I had a promising career, and I never missed a day at work. No matter how bad the hangovers were, I still made it to work. So try telling me I have a problem. How? I make it to work more than most people who are sober. And I don't drink at work. So what do you mean I have a problem? It didn't make sense, but I had a problem. And I'm so glad I realized it sooner than later. Because what happened is it wasn't weekends anymore. It was now Monday after work. Let's go for a drink. Tuesday, let's go for another. Wednesday, let's go for another. At this point, mind you, I'm no longer praying. I don't have a relationship with God, non existent, to be honest. For what? I don't think people get when someone is struggling, they really don't have anything to worry or to fear because most of the time you numb it with drinking. So you don't have to worry about God or what He needs or what He wants because you already have everything you need. So you think. So I struggled and I didn't want to accept that I did. But people around me did notice and they told me often, I think you're doing too much. But no, my friends are still partying as well. Yes, but they've stopped and you're not stopping. So how do you realize you have a problem? Suddenly, everyone you were partying with is suddenly grown up now and they're no longer drinking on weekdays, but you are. Suddenly, you're lonely now. You don't want to go out and drink with those friends. You're drinking alone in your room with a movie, trying to make excuse for it. What? I see it in the movies. Everybody grabs a drink after work and pour themselves a glass of wine before sleeping. Well, that's drama, and that is not wine they're drinking. That is a movie. Life is not a movie. You still have to wake up with a hangover and face your fears the next day. So, long story short, when I did notice I had a problem, is when I saw it in my mother's eyes that my struggle does not only affect me, but it affects everybody around me, including your parents. That's the first person who wants to see you succeed. They don't care about your job or your salary, everything you're having. They just care about your well being. And my first well being, according to my parents, was first my relationship with God, which has already gone and flew by. So I realized that not too late, but after I fractured my life, after I gave up most of the things that I wanted to do, which is one of those things was this having a podcast, being in front of a camera and being myself. That's always been my dream. But see, I had forgotten everything, including that. But when I started to notice the problem, I started to pray. I can't lie to you. I didn't go to any rehab. I didn't go to any, I don't know, AA meetings. It doesn't mean that those things do not help. Those who are deep and gone, they do help. But just in my case, I just didn't need it. Not because I was not having a problem, but because one decision alone could turn my life around. And it did. And that decision was accepting Christ as my Lord and Savior again in my life. And I started reading about addiction. I started trying to understand what substances abuse are. And guess what? Alcohol is also substance abuse. It's not just drugs. When you talk about substance abuse, the first thing that comes to your mind is what? No, heroin, cocaine, no. Alcohol is the worst. It's the silent monster because it's the most accepted drug in this society. Because everywhere you go, they offer it to you and it's legal. So, what do you tell yourself? It's fine. I don't have a problem. Just because you got your life together doesn't mean that you're not an addict or that you're not struggling. You're drinking only on weekdays. I mean, weekends. You're still struggling. Guess why? When your friends stop, you don't stop until you black out. You have a problem. And when you realize that, then you can work on getting better because recovery is possible, but it has to take one decision. This is something not only me or myself who struggled with it. I saw it around myself, my friends, family. I saw it around. And I think people do not understand that the biggest victims in all this are the family members of those who struggle because they do not understand sometimes. And when they do understand, they do not know how to help an addict if the addict does not want to help themselves. So on this podcast, I'm going to be bringing both the addicts, people struggling, people who have recovered, and the families of those who are struggling. Where do they go for comfort? You know, the addict could go back home and they have a shoulder to lean on. The parent, the siblings, the husband, the wife is waiting to give them a shoulder to cry on and to give them a support system for them to recover. But what about the families of those who are struggling? Who do they cry to? It's very hard on those people that love you when you struggle. Very hard. But recovery is a new hope. It's very possible. There's many institutions here in Rwanda that specialize in recovery, in addiction. Going back to my story, I decided to bring back my life to Christ, and I changed. Not because I could it on my own. I couldn't do it on my own. I had to make the decision, yes. And through the decision, God worked in me and I was able to get the help that I needed. I worked back on the relationship I had with God, and I have many things going on for me. I'm a mom now, so I do not want my daughter to go through that. Why? Because I want it to be normalized in this day and age. Addiction is real, and there's a real way people can get help. So, anybody, if you know anyone struggling, if you know anybody who has a loved one that is struggling, recovery is possible, and there is places they can get help at, because this is more than normal. It's normal because many people, even you watching right now, you have a loved one, a friend, or a distant relative who. So you might ask yourself, how did I manage to stop and get myself into recovery? It wasn't just by sheer luck. Trust me, I had to put in a lot of work. What I had to find out first was the reason why I was making out myself to be a party animal, which is something that not only was I not raised like that, it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me. So I had to work on what is it internally that I'm trying to hide from. And I faced it. And from there, I worked on myself day in and day out. And trust me, I think everybody needs to hear this. Yes, AA meetings work. Yes, rehabilitation may help you, but it all has to start from here. And if God is working in you, He can make everything possible, like He did with me. He made me a new person, and I regained my trust in Him. So, what we are talking about here is not just talks, it's real data. Everything is in numbers. For example, right now, as we speak, there's a recent research with the Rwandan Biomedical Center and University of Rwanda together. More than 52% of Rwandan youth have used at least one substance in their lifetime. 52%, imagine half of the whole population of the youth has used at least one substance. I don't know what your substance of choice was. It could be alcohol, it could be, drugs, it could be marijuana, it could be anything. But at least 52% have tried at least one substance. That is real serious numbers. So do you want to tell me that each and every one of these kids were not raised right? No, they were raised right. I think along the way, things happened, trauma, loss, a shift, something happened, because nobody just wakes up one day and starts drinking or using. So another research said that in the past 30 days alone, like last month, we're in what month again? Are we in March? So meaning in February, 34% of youth reported using alcohol. That's roughly 1 in 3 youth in Rwanda. 1 in 3 people in Rwanda is using alcohol. That's a lot. Imagine right now you're sitting with how many people? Count 2, 3. One of them is using. I don't know if it's alcohol. One of them is using something. That's big numbers, and it's scary and it's heartbreaking, And people use from any ages, from 11 up. Some people, I don't know what the drinking age limit is in Rwanda. Do you know? 18? 21? 18? Okay, 18. Some people drink even before that. Those are really sad numbers. So it's not that all of this youth or all of these people do not have support systems, or it's a real issue, because these are real people. Those youth have families who have to watch their loved ones each and every day struggling. So it's a real problem. And now that we've all noticed that it's a real problem, we can do something about it. First, by talking about it, by educating the public on what to do, and also by bringing in people who could, give us a way forward. For example, professionals who deal with mental illnesses that are caused by substance abuse, people that could bring in insight, tell us why these numbers are the way they are and what could be done to reduce it. And we'll start by talking about it, by bringing people who've experienced substance abuse and how they recovered and what systems that are out there that could help. There's a lot of hospitals here in Rwanda that deal with rehabilitation and also substance abuse induced mental health, because most people deal with mental health illnesses that were induced by substance abuse. They were not born with these mental illnesses. They were not born bipolar. They were not born schizophrenic. But because of substance abuse, these mental illnesses were induced. With all that said, there is hope because there's help. Here in Rwanda, we have multiple rehabilitation centers. We also have professionals who deal with substance abuse and mental illnesses that are induced by substance abuse. Not everybody was born with a mental illness. Some is induced by substance abuse or an extensive amount of alcohol. I don't know. I'm not that professional, but from the research I have made, some mental illnesses are brought about by the substances we use. That's why some people who drink become frenzy, acting crazy. You're like, this is not my friend. This is not how you usually act. That's because they've been struggling for so long that the alcohol abuse or the substance abuse is now affecting their psyche. It happens, and it's nothing to be ashamed of because there's help. It's an illness. So you do not have to be angry at the person who's facing addiction or, be extremely harsh on them. There's a way to seek help for them. There's hospitals and rehabilitation centers, professionals who are trained specifically for that. Yes, you can pray for them, but also seek medical help where it's needed. It's not a secret that some people who abuse substances reach a point where they cannot function. Some are functioning alcoholics, which is majority of everyone out there. They can still go to work, still be able to afford a decent life because they think they have their addiction under control, managed. But it's not managed. It's still there. You can cover it up forever. And there are those who are completely in full-blown addiction. They can keep a job. They can keep even a living situation. They can't live with everybody because nobody can put up with, their lifestyle. But each and every one of those people needs help, and nobody is better than the other. Everybody needs help sometimes, and everybody struggles. What matters is the willingness to accept help, because once you have accepted you have a problem, then you can find help. But as long as you haven't seen a problem in yourself, then I don't know who else can help you but yourself. The doctors can only do so much. They can only help those who want to be helped, by the way. You cannot take a substance addict to a rehabilitation without them being convicted of having a problem and seeking help. What will the doctor do? Pray it out? No. You need to cooperate. You need to be willing to change for anything to be done. Nobody can pray the demon out. Even the pastors can just work with the spirit, maybe to call God into your life, but can God come into your life without you accepting him with an open heart? No. Same with help. Addiction counselors, everybody could do nothing if you do not want to change. So if you want to help your loved one, they first have to accept they have a problem. Then healing starts. Recovery is possible. That's why we'll bring a lot of people on here to talk about those possibilities and help, because I think what most people struggle with is knowing what ways they could do or what they can use to help their loved ones. If you know what you can do, who to talk to, then it will be easier. And also it will be a support group for people who have loved ones struggling. Those people are also affected because they see day in and day out their loved ones throwing everything away, and they can do anything to stop it. Your love cannot make them stop. Your prayers can only move God, and God can only come in their heart if they accept him openly. These are a few things that I know could, prompt people to go into substance abuse. First, It's peer pressure, like I said. You start university, college, everybody is, it's a party time. So you party, your friends stop partying, but you can't stop. One day you wake up, you're 40, and you're still partying alone in the bar while your fellow 40-year-olds are getting married with kids, with houses. But you can't buy a house, right? No, you've drunk it all. You left it at the bar and don't get a refund for that. Neither do you get a refund for the years you've lost on your life. Okay, everything is moving fast, but you can't catch up. You're not sober to see it. Number two, unemployment and hopelessness. We've all been there, looking for a job. Finding a purpose is also hard on its own. Now imagine even finding a job. Sometimes it's hard. Life is harsh. I know life sucks, but do we have to throw it all away because of a few years of darkness? No. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. But these are a few things that I know could prompt someone into addiction. And the other one is trauma and loss. We've all lost someone we love, or we've been there. We faced traumas, childhood trauma. It could be anything. Sometimes those things do trigger somebody into addiction because they want to numb the pain. They simply don't want to feel anything. But it's not a solution. Alcohol makes it worse because it's the number one depressant. That is something that is factual. It's a depressant. Not just alcohol, heroin, cocaine. First time using, it could be good, I heard. But it reaches a point they're no longer using to feel good. They're literally using to feel alive, because if they don't, they will die. The withdrawals are crazy. So what starts as something that numbs your pain ends up being everything that kills you slowly but surely. But there is hope. There is hope. So here on Vibe with V, it's a very safe podcast where we'll be bringing guests here to share their stories of recovery, their stories of experiences with substances abuse, and also professionals who have helped people in those situations, and how and where people can get help if they're facing such issues. So please stay tuned. It's going to be a very fun episode because we're going to be educating and also learning ourselves on what to do. So please stay tuned. And also, on the next episode, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest stories that I've been researching about. One woman called Aileen Wuornos, who also, through substance abuse, fractured her life and became something she never anticipated to become. So please stay tuned because it's going to be exciting. There's a lot of stories out there that people need to listen to, because many lives are affected by substance abuse. People go into crimes. People do things they never expected to do. But here, we're not judging a space. We're going to be able to accommodate everybody, and we learn one thing or the other. We will. Thank you.